there, and you're very welcome to another episode of the Arkham Avengers Fantasy Football Premier League podcast. You join me, the host, along with Eamon and Hector, where we take a look to see how our managers are getting on in their quest to be crowned the champion for 2021-22. Eamon, very nice to have you on the show today.
Thank you. It's nice to be here. It's a little bit empty, but it's still nice to be here.
Indeed, we have no Hector and we have no Captain Fantastical Mick for some reason, so two of us are going to be running this week's episode.
Well, look, I think that of the four of us, I think the best two are here today, in my view.
Thank you for that compliment, Eamon. And listeners, you're very welcome to today's show. The football is back. Yes, Gameweek 24 is getting us back on track. Thank gosh. Some people are saying it's been very boring for the last week or so as we waited for the football to resume. However, before we take a look to see what our managers have been up to for Game Week 24, Eamon, will we have a little recap to see the final points from Game Week 23 for our managers and where they ended up on the table?
Yes, I think so. Look, a little recap there. There was a match, to finish off there. And look, it'll be interesting. I don't think there'll be much of a change, but it will be interesting to see the points. They weren't great to start off with in 23, and I have a feeling they might not have ended up very good.
No, they were kind of on the low side, all right there. Okay, first place, no change there. Sorry, KDB. They ended up with 39 points for Game Week 23. King was the captain, 6 points. Eamon.
Well, look, as I said in our last show, they're looking off form, and okay, they got 39 points. It's 4 above the average. Not great.
Second place then is Raglan Road, 27 points. Captain Bernardo, 4 points.
And look, again, we've discussed this. Bernardo didn't do the business, dip in form, but they're in second place. They're holding their own.
Third place is Tobogger, 6. 30 points. Captain Dennis, -2.
Look, it's simple. The two matches that Dennis had didn't work out. And I think this should be a lesson for a lot of managers. Just because a team is going to have, a double game week doesn't always necessarily mean you're going to get the dividends of that. And I think it's something to consider. We'll talk about some matches that are coming up. But in my view, the player who has the two matches might not do as good as the guy who has one match to play. That's my thought on this.
Now, Arkham Avengers are up to 4th.
Oh, well, look, there has to be some surprise in the league.
They got 33 points. De Bruyne, of course, was their captain. 16 points. We're impressed with that.
I was, yes. I think the spoofer made the right decision with the captain. Certainly of all the decisions that were made by managers in the league, the spoofer certainly had the wit to go with somebody who would perform well. Well done to him.
5th place, and they've also gone up, is Ain't Got a Clue. 49 points even. Now, of course, they have Salah as the captain.
Yes, Salah as the captain. Salah was away on international duty at the African Cup of Nations, and they did have Van Dijk as the vice captain, and they got 16 points.
As good as De Bruyne.
Yes, as good as De Bruyne. I don't think it was intentional to do it that way. I still have doubts about this manager, but they're up there.
And then down to 6th was Blightsome squad. 21 points, Eamon. Cancelo, the captain, got the 4.
Certainly didn't perform. I think Blightsome be wanting to put this behind them. This isn't the first game week where they've had a bit of a disaster. They wouldn't want to make a habit of this now. I think it's draw a line in the sand, put this behind them.
Okay. And down to 7th then is Legion 11. They had 28 points. They had Dennis as their captain as well.
Yeah, Legion seem to be gone off the boil a little bit. Not much going on there. That'd be disappointing, 28 points. They went on a good run, but I think something's going on. I think distractions, maybe tiredness, fatigue is setting in with the manager. Not too sure.
8th place then, and no change here. Lafayette Lions, 30 points. They had Kane as their captain, got 4 points.
A poor return for Kane. You'd expect a little bit better there, but Kane hasn't got his scoring boots on this season, and he's worth keeping in the team at some, degree of expectations, but overall, he's disappointing.
9th place, again, no change. The Mighty Defenders, 25 points. They had Cancelo as well as their captain, got to 4 points.
Yeah, a letdown, but as I said, the Mighty Defenders, there's a lot of teams here not on form.
A lot of teams are low points either. they're not getting the points. No, they're not. They're selecting players. Oh, wishy-washy. Not great. Can we win again? Or in 10th place? 42 points though. Yes, they had Dennis as the captain, -2. And look, let's move on from that. There's nothing to say about that. The thing what saved this manager's game week was the subs from the bench. Cody came in with 2 points and Dallach came in with 9. That's 11 points. Take those 11 points out of it. It's 31. It's nothing. I don't think this manager should be getting up on any high horse at the moment and thinking, yippee, I'm back in town. 11th place, non-mover also. Maximum effort, 26 points. They had Bernardo as their captain, 4 points. Well, look, can we move on? I have nothing to say about this. This is minimal effort, maximum uselessness. A little bit harsh there, Eamon. No, it's not. It's like, at least get 30 points at least. That's what I'm saying. Get to 30 points. 26 points, useless. 12th position, didn't move. And Loco John, they got 48 points though. They got 48 points. And I don't know how they managed it. Well, I'll tell you how they managed it. They had Lukaku as their captain for 4 points. But they got 10 points from the 2 subs who came in. Well, look, this just saves their blushes. Again, this is another man. There's several of these managers, I'm not sold on them. They're just not doing it. And look, I'm getting tired of listening to myself. I'm sure the listeners are getting tired of listening to you as well, whinging on like that. I wouldn't be whinging on like this if these managers started to buck up and play this match the way it's supposed to be. Play this game the way it needs to be. Use a bit of imagination and do something different. 13th place, and it was Rosie Rovers. They had 44 points. Fernandez is the captain, 6 points. And they had 17 points from the subs bench. It certainly came in handy, didn't it? Yes, it came in handy, but I can tell you this, it wasn't anything that the manager had plotted or planned. There was nothing in this. They had lucky. They had the players on the bench. Well, surely, Eamon, if I can put this to you, they selected the players to go on the bench, didn't they? Yes, they did. And in that instance, they have been factoring in that these players could be coming off the bench at some point and bring the points with them. They selected the players to put on the bench. Therefore, they're doing something, aren't they? They're not doing anything now. They've just selected those players ages ago and haven't done a thing since. So I'm not buying that. Well, even the players, the points came off. You can't argue with that. I'd argue with this. They're not doing anything. It is easy that those guys could have been injured and sitting there on the bench doing nothing. This manager wouldn't have moved them. This manager happened to select those players for whatever particular reason, and I don't believe it's because they had the foresight to think that, game week, whatever, they'll come in good. They might be substituted. No. This is just washout business. In 14th position, no change either. Water Beauty 99, they had 31 points. They also had Captain Bernardo, 4 points. Enough said. Let's get on with the last guy. Okay, and in 15th place, no change. Bamford Rejects, 32 points. They had Salah as the captain, of course, wasn't playing. But their vice captain was Ramsdale and got 16 points. Yeah, a bit of luck in that. Okay. But look, they didn't even have a sub for Son. Again, it's all the signs of a team that are just left there idle, gathering dust on the pitch almost that they are. So that's how our team looks at the moment there. Now, okay, game week 24. And game week 24 kicked off on Tuesday, the 8th of February. We'll have a look in to see what a manager's done. So Xari KDB, they have 2 transfers. They've lost 4 points. They brought Salah in, and they put Jota out, and they brought Laporte in. Cucurella has gone out. Foden's the captain. Yeah, man, I'm interested in your take on Salah being brought in. Like, he was away, he's back, but will he play? I don't know if he will play a full match. He may come on at some point. I think fatigue could be in here. He has been playing football. He may not play this game week. I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't have transferred Jota out. I'd have kept Jota in. The other, Laporte, bringing him in is probably not a bad move and so on. Question about Foden. Foden has signs of being a good player, but I wouldn't trust him on being my captain. And now the other thing here is that Xari KDB has decided to opt for, 3 Liverpool players, and the gamble is, will Salah play? And they also have the 3 Man City players. Cancelo is there, Laporte and Foden. There's a bit of banking on this. I think it's still a gamble. Now, one of the issues here, of course, is that Calvert-Lewin for Everton was there.
He's still there. He's keeping faith with this guy, and I don't know why. This guy is not doing anything, and it's time, to ship him out and at least get somebody in who might get you a point or two. Okay, yeah, well, I suppose, look, they're keeping faith with him. They're keeping faith there, but look, it's not just doing it here. I think this manager is taking a big punt on Liverpool and Man City. Man City, I expect, will do the business. They're playing Brentford. The Salah thing is a question mark hanging over it.
We moved down then to Raglan Road. Now, Raglan had one transfer. They have brought Son in. Gallagher went out, and Son is the captain. Now, so a good move.
It's certainly an interesting move there. I think that Tottenham are going to do quite well. I think there'll be a good result out of Son. Again, they have Alexander-Arnold and Jota and Firmino. I think they're still a bit like Sarri KDB. They're expecting a lot from Liverpool. They're playing Leicester. Leicester can be tricky at times. They have the two Man City guys in there as well. Cancelo and Bernardo is still there. So, look, it'll be quite interesting. They had St. Maximin up front, and he already collected the 5 points, which is a good move. It's wise to have that guy there. Now, they've got Dennis on the bench. No loss. And Madison, of course, is on the bench, may play or may not play. I think that this manager is setting themselves up that they are going to try and make a push for top spot. They're a little bit behind the curve, but I think they have the rest of the game weeks, and we're going to have a few double weeks for teams in there, and they're going to push now at the moment. And it's going to be very interesting.
I think there's a toss up of a coin between Raglan and Doboggers, though, isn't it? I mean, they're duking it out for second place.
They are duking it out, but I think that Raglan has the upper hand. They have managed to get into second place. I expect that they'll hold it and push.
Doboggers 6 then had one transfer. They brought in Laporte as well. They put Alonso out. Now, Eamon, they decided to have Captain Dennis in place. What do you make of that?
I think that was an ill-judged move on behalf of Doboggers, and I think it will come back to haunt them. Looking at the team, and they had Ronaldo as the vice captain. Ronaldo is not on form. He's blanking. He got 1 point for the match yesterday. He's just not.
Dennis was captain, so he's brought in 4 points.
Yeah, that's absolutely useless. I wouldn't be impressed with that forward line. Like, Dennis, Ronaldo, and Antonio. Like, they're three Muppets in my view. They shouldn't be there. Another issue, of course, here is on the bench. Like, Trossard isn't playing. Mount and Christensen for Chelsea aren't playing. They're blanking. Fabianski is there and he got 6 points. But the rest of it here. And I mean, I think if Livramento isn't playing, then they have no subs in there. And he may not be playing, of course. No, he may not be playing. He has been injured. I don't think he will play. Doboggers is, dropping down here. They're losing ground. And to me, this is looking like a very average team and a very average manager these days.
We have a look then at Arkham Avengers, and Arkham Avengers had 3 transfers. They've lost 8 points. Eamon, Dallas has been brought in, and McAllister has been put out. St. Maximin has been brought in. Dennis was shipped out. Weghorst, the new striker for Burnley, was brought in, and King was shipped out. What do we think of this shape?
Well, look, I think for once that the spoofer has got rid of 2 Scalachicos. Getting rid of King and Dennis, certainly. And let's face it here, they brought in St. Maximin. He's got 5 points. And Weghorst, who is a new signing, has got 5 points as well. That's the return. You lost 8, but you gained 2 out of those players. And that's what you're looking at.
They've got De Bruyne as their captain.
Yeah, and I expect a good result out of that there. I wouldn't be, overly critical of this. It's a good captain to go for. They have a functioning bench. Maybe not the goalkeeper. But look, I think the spoofer has been using common sense here for a change, and we'll be hoping for a good return from De Bruyne. And they may not hold. It'll depend on what Blightsome. If Blightsome can get themselves going. I'm not saying I ain't got a clue. You're not going for ain't got a clue. No, I'm not going for ain't got a clue. They don't have a clue, and that's the end of that. Blightsome might push, get back into 4th place. So
another tussle. Another battle going on there.
Yes, there's another tussle going on between those two. And I think Blightsome will end up being the victor of that. I don't think the spoofer's not level-headed enough. Like this, we spoke about transfers, and there's the spoofer kicking out at 8 points straight away. The spoofer's just, too erratic to be able to hold a course. They'll do well, and then they'll make a big faux pas, and then they'll have to try and battle away and do that. They're always battling against themselves.
So we take a look then at Ain't Got a Clue, and Ain't Got a Clue have no transfers. Now, they have remained with Salah as the captain, but as you said, Will he play?
Yeah, he may not play, but that's beside the point here. I think the talking point of this team is that Rudiger and Jorginho have been left there at Chelsea, and they don't play. They blank. This manager's going to hope that there's going to be points coming off the bench, because that's just not working out. And again, I wouldn't be overly too impressed with the forward lines. Odwell is there for Crystal Palace. Lacazette is there. Arsenal will be playing Wolves. I'm not expecting much here. I think they're hanging about, but that's just it. Hanging about, not doing anything else.
We then take a look at Blightsome Squad. Now, Blightsome Squad actually played their wild card, and they have decided that for this week, it'll be Captain De Bruyne. Eamon, a good captain choice anyway.
Certainly a solid, dependable captain choice. I think that if I had a question mark here, I think they were relying too much on the Aston Villa guys. Like the Digne, Coutinho is there, and they have Ings. And I'll come to Ings in a moment. Coutinho is doing good, and I like him. He is a very good player, and I think he's settling well into Aston Villa. Digne is kind of newish enough. He has form. I think, though, you might have got away with another defender, something like that. Now, the forward line, Ings and Odegaard, for me, are non-runners. I wouldn't have those two there. If you gave me all the tea in China, I wouldn't have that. Those two lads are not capable. They have no ability to bring in big hitting points there. And if anything, the lesson for Blightsome is that St. Maximin is sitting on the bench with 5 points. Now, all going well, those 5 points will come off. It's an improvement, certainly, on their previous week. And I think playing the wild card was what they needed to do. They need to try and get back in this game. They need to start to make a real push now. This is it. No more willy-nilly stuff out of them.
We come to Legion 11 then, and Legion had one transfer. They have brought in Maupay and they put out King. Now, Eamon, that's a strange transfer.
It's an unusual transfer because, of course, Brighton are blanking this week, and why would you bring in Maupay when he's not going to play? There's no sense in that. Kane is the captain. You'd expect and you'd hope he could do something there. And I think, though, the manager has really just put an awful lot of eggs in the basket, hoping that Kane is going to do the business. I mean, they do have Bowen there. They have Jota. Bernardo is in the midfield, but I wouldn't captain him. But Maupay there is just a real, just confusing transfer to do there. Look, I'm not expecting much from this manager this week.
We come down then, of course, to Lafayette Lions. They have no transfers, Eamon, but they've gone with Kane. They're sticking with him.
Yeah, they're sticking with Kane. Hopefully it'll prove correct for them. Again, you'd have to question the forward lines. Like Antonio and Dennis, they're as bad now as, Ings and Odegaard, in my view there. They'll probably do quite well there. Ward-Prowse is in the midfield. He's always a very good player. Well worth having a shot at, which, having you on your team. Cancelo and Diaz, I'd expect that they'll do well, Man City are playing Brentford, and I'd expect something there. However, this is a team that were flying really high. They made great strides. They joined late. They shot up that table little by little, and now they've just hit a slump. And I think they've lost a grip on the team. They've lost a grip on their way. I think they've lost their mojo, if you ask me, and they're not just clicking. And I doubt it's their first season. Let's not take anything away from them. And when you can get up to 8th place at, game week 24, you have to be commended for that. And perhaps maybe they're in a learning curve, and they will be bringing what they learned this season into next season.
We go down into, of course, to the mighty defenders. They had one transfer. They have brought in Odegaard in. They put out Maupay, and they have decided to captain Bowen. Interesting choice. Well, Bowen has 22 points. They played yesterday, and that's very good. Odegaard, I'm not too sure. I think he was on the bench, so there's every possibility he'll come off. Well, he might come off, but I'm not expecting great things from him. The Antonio guy up there beside him, he's more or less gathering dust. Look, Antonio is finished for the season, if you ask me. I don't think he has it in him. They had Kane and Gray, and for me, those two for Everton, they're just not doing it. I think it's time for them to go. I think that the mighty defenders need to try and make a run on this. Like Legion and Lafayette they're not there at the moment. Now they're gone. So mighty defenders could overtake both of those, and ain't got a clue. I expect they ain't got a clue to drop further down there. So mighty defenders could really get a move here, and it'll be interesting in the next 3 or 4 game weeks what happens here. Then we come down, of course, to can we win again? And for game week 24, They had one transfer and they brought in Odegaard in. They put Daka out. Now I know Daka, Leicester are playing Liverpool, but Daka brought them in 9 points in game week 23. And that's how he was rewarded. Shipped out. Well, I tell you something, I would have left Daka there rather than bringing in that other pilot, Odegaard. I'd have just, that to me was just a waste. And he made him a vice captain as well. Like, seriously, this is our last year's champion, and this is what he's doing. He's gone for Kane as captain, of course. He has, yeah. Look, I'm not overly sold on this team. I think it's quite, Odegaard and Dennis are doing nothing out there. Saka's on the bench, and I think I would have kicked a Dennis out. I wouldn't have brought in Odegaard. And even if you had it like Kane and Daka up front and have Saka on the pitch, it might bring a bit more structure to it. Look, it's another average week to come for this manager in my books. Maximum Effort then, of course, had one transfer. Now, Eamon, if we wondered about Legion's 11's transfer, I think that Maximum Effort's transfer will baffle us even more. Most certainly. Like, Jorginho was brought in and Gray was put out. Now, more than the Mope job, Jorginho blanks game week 24. He doesn't play game week 25. Chelsea are playing in game week 26, and he doesn't play in game week 27. So out of the next 4 game weeks, this guy potentially might only play once, and he's transferred in. This is the most nonsensical piece of transferring that I've seen all season. You have to question, what is this manager actually thinking about when they're doing that sort of a transfer? Did they do this transfer late at night? Did they hit a wrong player? Did they press a wrong button? Something had to be wrong here. I'd like it if this manager would contact the show and explain what was their tactical reason for this. They've gone for Kane as their captain, of course, here. Look, I suppose, like you did say, Gray wasn't. Look, the Gray is, Gray go out, but Jorginho, what'd you bring him in for? Yeah, they could have probably brought in Bowen or something and get some decent points there. And as well as this, they have Rudiger sitting on the pitch there. Now, of course, if Noble or Amarte played, okay, that'll be the substitution. But they're not putting any thought to this. They've done a transfer. They brought a Chelsea guy in. They've left a Chelsea guy on the pitch. Like, this is mind-boggling stuff, so it is. And it's questionable decisions from the manager. And it's questionable what the manager is doing. There's a lot of questions here. I'm not getting any answers. We haven't had any answers all season. Loco John then, of course, has no transfers. They've left Lukaku as their captain. Not playing. And Bamford is there injured. This is the manager, of course. He's doing nothing with the team. I think at this rate, they're going to be in for a rough couple of weeks here. Meslier is the vice captain, so he might try and do something. Look, I think Leeds have a couple of challenging matches coming up, so I don't think there's going to be anything here. I think this manager is just out of steam, finished there now. Rosie Rovers, of course, then is next, and they, of course, surprise, don't have any transfers. Do we even have to talk about this manager? But look, Eamon, we have to. Like, Fernandes is the captain, so Man United played yesterday. They got 4 points out of that day. Yeah, look, but they have Chilwell there, who's injured, not playing. Kanté is not playing, and Bamford is injured, and Mount is on the bench. Of course, not playing. Well, Cash will be there, and Cash, they're playing tonight, so few points possibly there. Gabriel might come in well for them. Yeah, look, but it's a team that's on autopilot. All I'm going to say is good night, Irene. Oh, okay. Water Beauty 99 also start game week 24 with no transfers. What can you say here? They have Bernardo as their captain, and they've left Rudiger on, who's not playing. But add in there, Duffy is there, Bissouma is in there as well. So there's 3 players not playing. And they've got Locady on the bench, who's injured. They're not going to be able to even field 3 subs, and they need Tomiskas and Amarte to play. There's a lot of questions here. Dennis and Antonio up front, just not doing it. In my view, it's another blank week for this manager. And finally, Bamford rejects again, no transfers, and they have Salah as the captain. Another team that's been neglected. James is injured, but he's blanking anyway. Mount is blanking. I'm not going to say much about this. If this manager had made any changes, I would have been bowled over. And that's honest here, so it would be. Well, that's it, Eamon, and that's the transfer activities. Of course, we'll be revisiting once this game week is finished to see how they got on. Now, I suppose one of the questions I was going to say was the matches we had yesterday. Newcastle didn't keep a clean sheet against Everton, but they scored 3 goals. Look, I think it was a very positive move
from Newcastle, and I'm expecting that from now to the end of the season, Newcastle are going to do the business. They will stay up. Everton will aren't in trouble, but look, they will settle after a while there. And of course, Burnley drew against Man United. A bit of surprise there. I'm not surprised really. Man United just are all over the place. They have no structure. They've got that Ronaldo came off the bench. He's just not doing anything either. Some of those players are just going through the motions. I wouldn't be taken with their manager. I'm not taken by their form. There's big names there that are not performing. I'm not surprised at that. Fair play to Burnley.
Very good there. And tonight's matches, of course, as we're talking, they're still ongoing. They're still, some of them are going to wrap up there. Man City are beating Brentford 2-0. Norwich are drawing, with Crystal Palace 1-1. Tottenham are 2. Southampton are 3.
Well, as I said, Kane hasn't got his shooting boots on. Not looking good. A lot of questions there. I think all that talk about the transfer has upset him. He's not on form. And again, I think sometimes if a player wants to go, you let them go. That's it. Because if you're holding on to a player and they don't want to stay at a club, you don't get 100% from them.
And then Aston Villa are 3 and Leeds United are 3.
And interesting, yeah. And I think at the moment, am I right, Leeds went a goal up and then Aston Villa went 3-1 up, and the Leeds have bounced back here. So it's a good result. Look, Leeds are battling. They're fighting there, and it's not finished yet either, so it's not. And of course, tomorrow, of course, in that match there, we're going to have Liverpool will be taking on Leicester and Wolves will be taking on Arsenal. Look, I think the Liverpool-Leicester match will be interesting, and I think Arsenal might be strong enough to take Wolves. So I'd say that could be a 2-1 result. I wouldn't be surprised if Leicester and Liverpool ended 2-2.
Very well. Before we wrap up here, you actually said that you wanted to talk here about some matches coming up.
Yes, this is something of interest, I think, for some managers. And as we've discussed here, Game Week 24, Chelsea and Brighton, they're blanking. They're not playing. If we look at Game Week 25, Chelsea and Arsenal don't play. However, there are double matches for Man United and Brighton.
Okay. Well, who are they playing?
Man United are playing Southampton, and they will be also then playing Brighton. And Brighton will be playing Watford and, of course, Man United. As I said, because some of those teams, you have to look at Ronaldo. Would you be gambling on him for those 2 matches of Man United? If he came off the bench for one of them, I got 1 point, and comes off the bench for the other and gets 2, that's 2 points out of 2 matches. Is it really worthwhile?
What would you do there?
You might be better off getting rid of the Ronaldo, opting for a player from another team, and you might get the remember, Ronaldo might come good. I wouldn't trust him at this moment. That's my honest opinion. I wouldn't trust him. I wouldn't depend on him. I'd put that St. Maximin in, or I'd put in Workhorst in there. They're the lads that I'd be putting in there. And then if you go to Game Week 26, this is an interesting game week, because Arsenal are playing Brentford and they're also playing Wolves. Burnley are playing Brighton and Spurs. Crystal Palace will play Chelsea and Watford. Leeds are playing Man United and Liverpool. Liverpool are playing Norwich and Leeds. You've got Spurs who want to be playing Man City and Burnley. And Watford play Aston Villa. They also play Crystal Palace. And finally, Wolves are playing Leicester and Arsenal. So you have a good rattle of double match players there and matches. And if you already have some players in from Arsenal, Burnley, Leeds, Spurs, Liverpool, you've got the ingredients for that. And I think that's what you need. And you need to be thinking about this now. Don't wait till the last minute.
Yeah, of course. And then, of course, in Game Week 27, there's blanks for Chelsea, Arsenal, Liverpool and Leicester.
Yeah, so, I'd be avoiding Chelsea at the moment. I certainly wouldn't be investing in a guy to bring him in for one match.
A bit like Maximin effort.
Maximum uselessness, if you ask me, with that sort of a transfer.
All right, okay, Eamon, listen, thank you very much. That's interesting, and I hope that our managers will find that of some assistance to them as they plot their teams over the next few weeks. That's it, Eamon. We'll be back with a look at how everything has all settled, and we'll also be taking a look at Game Week 25. So, Eamon, and hopefully we might have the lads back.
And look, and I actually just enjoyed it. The banter between the two of us is as good as those other 2 cowboys in at times. But look, it's enjoyable, and it's nice to be here. It's nice to spend time just talking the football and not listening to some of the guff and the nonsense that comes out of it.
Right, okay. And that's a whole lot. Eamon, any shout out?
Certainly not. I'll just say hello to all the listeners there.
All right, okay, thank you. And indeed, yes, listeners, that's the end of our episode and our show for this week. So this is a recap for Game Week 23 and the review of what our managers have done for Game Week 24. I'd just like to say a thank you to all our listeners in America who are tuning in to us. It's very nice to have you. And we also have our listeners in Nepal, Comoros, our listeners in Ireland also, listeners in Germany, and a big shout out to all our listeners in Asia, in Japan especially. We have a big following in Japan at the moment, and a high five to everybody there. And to all our listeners, I hope that you have a good day, a good evening, have a nice night or a morning time, wherever you are as you're listening to us. Hope you're well. Stay safe. Don't forget to tell your friends about us. Subscribe. If you want to get in contact with us, drop us a line. You can email us at arkhamavengers@gmail.com. We're also on Twitter and Facebook. And until our next show, Slán.